The CEO had seen everything: betrayal in boardrooms, greed hidden behind polished smiles, and people crushed quietly under pressure. But nothing prepared him for what he saw that morning: a trembling hand, a sleeve pulled down too quickly, and bruises that told a story no one dared to speak. It was just past 7 a.m., and the glass walls of the towering office building reflected the pale morning light. Most employees wouldn't arrive for another hour, but he was already there, as always, early, precise, controlled. Routine had become his shield against a life that had once spun out of control. As he walked through the silent corridor, he noticed her. The cleaner. She was on her knees, carefully wiping the marble floor near the executive wing, moving slowly, as if each motion cost her something. He had seen her before, of course he had. He noticed everything. But today was different. Today, something felt off. Her hands were shaking. When she reached forward, her sleeve slid back just slightly, and that's when he saw it. Dark purple bruises, layered over fading yellow ones, wrapping around her wrist like silent chains. She noticed his gaze instantly and yanked her sleeve down, lowering her head, pretending nothing had happened. But it was too late. He had already seen. And once he saw something, he never ignored it. If you believe that kindness and second chances can change lives, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Because stories like this deserve to be heard and remembered. He didn't say anything at first. That was his way. He observed, calculated, understood before acting. But something about the way she avoided eye contact, the way her shoulders curled inward, as if she were trying to disappear, stirred something deep within him. A memory. A pain he had buried years ago. Her name was Aisha. He knew that from the staff records. 32 years old. No emergency contact listed. Minimal background information. The kind of person who slipped through the cracks of the world unnoticed. Until now. The rest of the day passed, but his mind didn't. Numbers blurred. Meetings became noise. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw those bruises again. Not just the marks, but what they meant. Fear, silence, suffering. That evening, instead of leaving through the private elevator, he took the long way out. The service corridor. The place where employees like Aisha existed, out of sight, out of mind. He found her there again, cleaning alone. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting shadows that made everything feel colder than it already was. She was moving slower now, exhaustion weighing down every step. He stopped a few feet away. She froze when she sensed him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The air felt heavy, thick with something unspoken. Then, quietly, he asked the one question that would change everything. He didn't ask about the bruises. He didn't accuse. He simply asked if she was safe. The words were soft, but they hit her like a storm. Her hands tightened around the mop handle. Her breathing became uneven. For a second, it looked like she might run. Like she had spent her entire life running from questions exactly like this. But something in his voice, something calm, steady, and without judgment, made her stay. She shook her head. Just once. And that was enough. He didn't press her further. He didn't need details, not yet. He understood what silence meant. He had lived it once. But what he did next, no one in that building could have predicted. The next morning, the entire office buzzed with confusion. Rumors spread faster than emails. Employees whispered in corners, trying to piece together what was happening. Because the CEO had cancelled all his meetings. Every single one. Instead, he had called for a full staff assembly, mandatory attendance. Even the cleaning staff. Even Aisha. People were stunned. This was a man who valued time above everything. A man who didn't make emotional decisions. And yet, here they were. The conference hall filled quickly. Executives in sharp suits sat beside janitors in worn uniforms. It was a rare sight, two worlds colliding under one roof. Aisha stood at the back, her head lowered, her hands clenched tightly together. She didn't belong here. She knew it. Everyone knew it. Or at least, that's what they thought. Until he walked onto the stage. He didn't carry notes. He didn't look at slides. He simply stood there, scanning the room with a quiet intensity that demanded attention. And then he spoke. He spoke about dignity. About how every single person in that building, regardless of title, deserved to feel safe. He spoke about silence, and how dangerous it could be. And then, without warning, he shared a story. Not about Aisha. About himself. He spoke of a childhood filled with fear. Of a home where raised voices meant danger. Of a mother who hid her bruises behind long sleeves and forced smiles. The room went silent. No one had ever heard this before. The powerful, untouchable CEO had once been a helpless child. He didn't go into graphic detail. He didn't need to. The pain in his voice said everything. He spoke about the day he realized that silence protects the wrong people. That looking away doesn't make you innocent, it makes you part of the problem. And then he said something that sent a ripple through the entire room. He said that from that moment forward, this company would be a place where no one had to hide their pain. Policies would change. Support systems would be put in place. Confidential help would be available for anyone in need, no questions asked. And then, he did something no one expected. He called Aisha's name. Her heart stopped. Every eye in the room turned toward her as she slowly stepped forward, her legs trembling with every step. She looked like she might collapse before reaching the stage. But he didn't let that happen. He walked down to meet her halfway. Not above her, not ahead of her, beside her. And in that moment, something shifted. The invisible barrier between them, the CEO and the cleaner, disappeared. He didn't expose her story. He didn't reveal her bruises. Instead, he simply acknowledged her courage. The courage it took to show up every day, to keep going, to survive. And then he made an announcement that left everyone in shock. Aisha would no longer be working as a cleaner. She would be given a new role within the company, one that came with training, support, and a chance to rebuild her life. But more than that, he ensured she would be safe. The company arranged immediate protection, legal assistance, and a secure place for her to stay. Quietly, respectfully, without turning her life into a spectacle. The room erupted, not with applause at first, but with something deeper. Realization. People began to see each other differently. The manager who had never noticed the cleaning staff suddenly felt a weight of guilt. The employees who had walked past Aisha every day without a second glance now understood the cost of indifference. And Aisha, for the first time in years, she felt seen. Not as a victim, but as a human being. The days that followed weren't easy. Healing never is. There were moments when fear crept back in. Nights when the past refused to stay buried. But she wasn't alone anymore. She had people who cared. She had a chance. And slowly, piece by piece, she began to rebuild her life. Months later, the transformation was undeniable. Aisha stood taller. Her voice, once barely audible, now carried quiet strength. The bruises had faded, but the scars had become symbols of survival, not shame. The company had changed too. It wasn't just about profits anymore. It became a place where people looked out for each other. Where kindness wasn't an exception, it was expected. And it all started with one moment. One glance. One decision to not look away. Before we reach the end, there's something special I want to ask you. If this story is touching your heart, comment below with the word, hope. Let's fill the space with something powerful, because sometimes, even a single word can remind someone they're not alone. The CEO never spoke about that day again. He didn't need recognition. He didn't seek praise. Because for him, it wasn't about being a hero. It was about being human. And maybe that's what shocked everyone the most. Not the power he had, but the compassion he chose to use. If this story moved you, if it made you feel something deep inside, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps stories like this reach more hearts, and maybe even change someone's life. Because sometimes, the smallest act of noticing can become the beginning of someone's second chance.